Gertrude Thompson, also known as Alona George of Shantimel St. Patrick, who resided at Fontenoy St. George, passed away on Tuesday 13th June 2023 at the age of 75. She was the mother of Helen Euler George Thompson, Margaret George, Rhonda Saran George, Kenda and Kashka Thompson in Canada, and Sekou Thompson in Grenada. Stepmother of Sandra Andrews and Gillian Sylvester Vasquez in the USA, Anthony Alexander and Alison Blair in Trinidad, Junior Penchu and Cassandra Caliste in Grenada. Grandmother of Olanza, Gerard, Sasha, Otis, Caden, Kai, Henry, Luca, Kahim, Shakir and Kayla. Great-grandmother of Tishana, Zayden, Javier, Zarian, Jaden and Joshua. Sister of Arthur Francis and Bishop Dr. Gifford Clement in the USA, Godfrey Thompson, Brenda Perry and Esther McLean in Grenada, and Sandra George in Canada. Mother-in-law of Vanda Joseph and Melissa Sudd. Sister-in-law of Denise Clement, Bernard Bull Perry, and Wilbert McLean. Aunt of many including Erin, Ernestine, Jimmy, Camo, Kimo, Anne and Zariah. Godmother of Margaret Etienne and Michelle Samuel. Many other relatives and friends in Grenada, Trinidad, the USA, England, and Canada, including the Thompson family of Shantimel and Caliste, the George family of Shantimel and St. Mark, the Lewis, Noel, and Charles families of Shantimel, the Thomas family of Shantimel and Fontenoy, the Harry Joseph family of Concord and St. George, the Samuel family of Fontenoy and St. David, Julian Gross Lewis, Betty Regis and family, Julian Neptune, Dennis Deanne, Kathy Abraham and family, Josephine Caliste and family, Anthea Bain and family, and friends and neighbours of Fontenoy, Cherry Hill and Grand Mall. The funeral service for the late Gertrude Thompson, also known as Alona George of Shantimel St. Patrick, who resided at Fontenoy St. George, will take place on Wednesday, July 5th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to Pentecostal rites, and interment will be at the St. George's Centre Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Peter Densley Martin, also known as Parley of Shantimel, who resided at Plains St. Patrick, died on Monday, June 12, 2023, at the age of 80. Left to Mona his lifelong companion, Maudlin, children Joni, Richard, Emon, Ghana, and Ronald Martin. Adopted son, Rondell Frame. 6 grandchildren, including Risa, Morris, and Malcolm. 2 sisters. Many nieces and nephews, including Tony Nicholas, Joseph Belfon and family, Eulin Pascal and family, and Agnes Pascal and family. Caregivers Hazel and Thomas, and Bernadine Mark. Other relatives and friends including Labby, Frame, Don, Teresa, Ching, Tonya, Bill Phillip, Joycelyn Rayburn, Alex and Ronald Phillip, Arthur Francis, Sherma, Donald, Lawrence and Margaret Frame, Keith Belfon and family, the Nicholas family of Shantimel, the Martin family of Darbo, and neighbours and friends of Shantimel, Plains and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Peter Densley Martin, also known as Parley, of Shantimel, who resided at Plains St. Patrick, will take place on Wednesday, July 5th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Patrick's RC Church, Sataz, and entombment will be at the Marley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Lewis, also known as Choiceman, of Florida St. John, who resided at Coast Guard St. Mark, passed away on Saturday 10th June 2023 at the age of 83. He was the life companion of Eunice Frederick, father of Nurse Julia Julian Bartholomew, Nurse Elutha Alexis, Catherine Julian Alexis, and Desmond Frederick in the USA. Stepfather of Davis, Stephen, Arthur, Terry, and Glenna Frederick. Grandfather of Davona King, Eluvia, Joshua and Ethan Bartholomew, Cyrus Frederick, Kevin and Kevon. Great-grandfather of Riley and Zoe Bartholomew and Thiago King. Brother of Christine John and Aline Lewis in the USA. Father-in-law of Desmond Alexis, Joseph Bartholomew, and Sherry Frederick. Uncle of many, including Judy Lewis, Dolores Modeste, Gemma and Debbie, Rodney, Andy, Troy and Larry Lewis, and Sam John. Many other relatives and friends, including Let Fraser, Merle, Mike, the Lewis family of Warve and Ladigue, the Welsh family, and friends and neighbours of Coast Guard and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Joseph Lewis, also known as Choice Man, of Florida St. John, who resided at Coast Guard St. Mark, will take place on Wednesday, July 5th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Mark the Evangelist Catholic Church, Victoria, and interment will be at the Coast Guard Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Carol Norma John of Lower Capital Birchgrove St. Andrew passed away on Sunday, 18th June 2023 at the age of 43. She was the daughter of Alithea Rogers, wife of Albert John, mother of Kadeen, Aaliyah, Keziah, and Katie John, sister of Karen Henry, Ian Phillip, Chrisma Phillip, Kenny Phillip, Joel Phillip, Dwight Phillip, Shabatha Lalji, Axel Phillip, and Alicia Phillip, aunt of 18, close friend of Nixon Fletcher. Other family and friends, including the Ferret, John, Charles, and Phillip families, and friends at the Pentecostal and Adventist churches Birchgrove and the Birchgrove community, and relatives residing abroad, especially Uncle Roy and Auntie Valerie. The funeral of the late Carol Norma John of Lower Capital Birchgrove St. Andrew will take place on Thursday, July 6th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Birchgrove New Testament Church, and interment will be at the St. Rose Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Walter Anthony McIntyre, also known as Carlisle, Manitou and Spice, of Grandon St. George, passed away on Friday, 2nd June 2023 at the age of 70. He was the father of Dr. Elquimedo Oscar Aline and Calvin and Donika McIntyre in the USA, stepfather of Ruthie, Candy, Sasha, and Chaka in the USA, grandfather of Carol, Cameron, Zuri, and Zakai McIntyre, step-grandfather of Unique, Jacinda, Leilani, Kalyani, Saranhi, Zaire, and Kirani, great-grandfather of Asaya, brother of Emerson, Richard, Paul, and Perron McIntyre, Paula St. Louis, and Pat Donna Campbell in Grenada, David, Mark, Zoe, Rory, and Elroy Charles in the UK, nephew of Carmen McIntyre, Lynette Park, Cynthia, and Ralph Williams, brother-in-law of Anastasia McIntyre, Pat Bowman, also known as Mrs. Dr. Sabi, Pastor Elisha St. Louis, and Dr. Michael Campbell, father-in-law of Adriana and Leanne, uncle of many including Evelyn, Abigail, Elizabeth, Brittany, Oprah, Brian, Jaron, Jamie, Jamil, Remy, and Zachary, caregiver and special friend Pauline Newton, godfather of Junior, Tamika, Charmaine, and Adrian. Many relatives and friends, including David, Denois and Jesse McIntyre, and Peters, Peter Bernard, Shabba in Trinidad, Ashley St. Bernard and family, Elvin Wells and family, Margaret Robinson and family, Randy Newton, the McIntyre, Coutain, Latouche, Andrews, Dubiset, Depradine, Joseph and Williams families in Grenada, Trinidad, and the USA, the Charles, John, and Francis families of Plaisance, Walker, Trinidad, Canada, the USA, and the United Kingdom, the Tropman family in the USA, the Link family of Lamode, and friends and neighbours of Café Beau Hill and Jean Anglais. The funeral service for the late Walter Anthony McIntyre, also known as Carlisle, Manitou, and Spice, of Grandon St. George, will take place on Thursday, July 6th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, followed by private cremation. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lackwell Brothers Funeral Home. Paul Emile Jules of Leicester, Carriacou, who resided at Mount Craven St. Patrick, a well-known fisherman, passed away on Monday 19th June 2023 at the age of 70. He was the father of Ronnie, Raquel, Rolanda, Ranel, and Rashon, grandfather of Raymond, Rinaldo, Diamond, Maya, Rihanna, Giovanni, Jamari and Neftali, father-in-law of 2, brother of Markavia Alexander, Juliet Joseph, and Altina and Teresa Jules, uncle of many. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Pastor Joshua McKee, Niles George and Dexter Charles, the Jules family of Leicester and St. Patrick, the Charles family of Rosehill, Riversally and Soubise, and the Joseph, Alexander and Paulson families of Carriacou and St. Patrick, the fishermen of Leicester, Soters and Aileron, and friends and neighbours of Carriacou, Monkcraven and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Paul Emile Jules of Leicester, Carriacou, who resided at Monkcraven St. Patrick, will take place on Thursday, July 6th at 12 noon. Funeral service will be held at the Riversally Pentecostal Church, and interment will be at the Riversally Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Mary Monica Williams of Tempe St. George passed away on Saturday 27th May 2023 in Trinidad at the age of 53. She was the wife of Shane Williams, daughter of Alan Simon, mother of Kareem, Shay, Chantel, Shakim and Zion, sister of Anne-Marie, Erlene, Irma, Shirley-Ann, Beverly, Valerie, Derek, Robert and Junior, aunt of many, cousin of many. Many other relatives and close friends including Rhonda Barber and family of St. Vincent, the general manager and staff of Nawassa, the pastor and members of the New Life Fellowship Church, Victory World Impact Ministries in Canada, the Garden of Prayer for All Nations Deliverance Center in Point Fort in Trinidad, members of the Joshua Generation Ministry, New Birth Prayer and Deliverance Sanctuary, the Church of God of Prophecy, Faith Deliverance Tabernacle, Eternal Love Ministry, the Lucas Street New Testament Church, Harvest Time Assembly, Montmoritz, the Garden of Prayer, and friends and neighbors of Tempe and surrounding areas, and in the USA, Canada, England, and Trinidad. The funeral of the late Mary Monica Williams of Tempe St. George will take place on Friday, July 7th at 11:30 a.m. Funeral service will be held at the Gateway Assembly, Caliste, and interment will be at the Wilberforce Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Monica Bernadette Samuel Alexis, also known as Monix or Young Girl, of La Femme, who resided at Westerhall St. David and in Trinidad, transformed this life peacefully on Friday, June 16, 2023, at the age of 81. She was the godmother of Grace Lewis, sister of Jean Isaac of Beaton and Dennis Samuel, niece of Sonny Francis of Westerhall, aunt of many including Joseph and Leslie Samuel, Christine Hector and Wendy Bloomfield in the USA, grand and great aunt of many including David Burris, Katisha George, Samantha, Kanisha, Kanaya, and Angel Lewis, sister-in-law of Cynthia Grenade Samuel. Other relatives and friends including Angela Rogers of Barbados, the Antoine family of Barbados and Grenada, the Noel, Felix, Samuel, Francis, and Alexis families in Grenada, and friends and neighbors in Trinidad. The funeral of the late Monica Bernadette Samuel Alexis, also known as Monix or Young Girl, of La Femme, who resided at Westerhall, St. David and in Trinidad, will take place on Friday, July 7th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at Bailey's Chapel, Coronage, St. George's, and interment will be at the Wilberforce Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Aaron Dominic Douglas Daniel John, also known as AJ, Akela and Baker, of Tophill Carriacou, who resided at John Anglais St. George and Mondelez St. David, passed away on Sunday 11th June 2023 at the age of 73. Left to mourn are his brothers Kenneth, Anthony, Joseph John in Carriacou, Ricardo, Paul and Winston Keynes Douglas in Grenada, and Andrew John in the USA. Sisters Monica Akins in the UK and Morella Bishop in the USA. Nieces and nephews Roy, Ronika, Mishka, Jarvis, Charlotte, Stacy, Leah, Kendall, Andrea, and many other nieces, nephews, and cousins too numerous to mention. Adopted father of many, including Daniel Danny John in the UK, Justin Telesford, Christopher Alexander, and many others. Godfather of many, too numerous to mention. Other relatives and friends including the Charles and John families in Carriacou, the US and the United Kingdom, the Keynes Douglas family in Grenada, the Redhead family in Grenada and the US, the staff at George F. Huggins, members of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, members of the 1st Grenada Scout Group, and the Blessed Sacrament Church Grand Arms, and friends and neighbors of Mondelez, Jean Anglais, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Aaron Dominic Douglas Daniel John, also known as AJ, Akela, and Baker, of Tophill Carriacou, who resided at John Anglais St. George and Mondelez St. David, will take place on Monday, July 10th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament Church, Grandon St. George, and entombment will be at the Hillsborough Cemetery, Carriacou, on Tuesday, July 11th. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Bernard Buckmeyer, also known as Strongman, of Pedmotar St. David, who resided at Montgelou St. George, passed away on Friday 23 June 2023 at the age of 67. Left to mourn are his wife Petrolina Gibson, children Natalie Bridgman, Lanessa and Jonathan Gibson, brothers and sisters Raymond Buckmeyer, Rosalind Kennedy, Bob Buckmeyer, Terry Buckmeyer, Deborah Buckmeyer, and Wilfred Buckmeyer, grandson Easton Marcus Gibson, brothers-in-law James Kennedy and Neil Alexis, sisters-in-law Barbara Buckmeyer and Jackie Buckmeyer, aunt-in-law Elaine Buckmeyer in Canada, aunt Anne Buckmeyer and family of River Road, nieces and nephews too numerous to mention. Other close relatives and friends including Alice Gibson and family, Dwan Noel, Mrs. Valda Brown, Bowen Louisaw and family, the Courtney family, James Park and family, Gentle de Gale and family, all of Montgelou, Norge Mitchell and family of Pedmotar, Arthur Amede of Hopeville, Jefferson Niles and family of Westerhall, Stephen Johnson and family of Westerhall, Lieben Clark, the Malin Smith family in the USA and England, Eugene Julian and family of Pedmotar, Mr. Carlisle Gabriel of Woburn, Doreen Bain of Marion, the Bridgman family of Monthorn, and friends and family of Montgelou, Marion, Pedmotar, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Bernard Buckmeyer, also known as Strongman of Pedmotar St. David, who resided at Montgelou St. George, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Vincent Anglican Church, Montgelou, and interment will be at the Montgelou Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Cutie St. John Worm of Grandon St. George, who resided in New York, passed away on Thursday, 17 February 2022 in New York, at the age of 50. Left to mourn are her husband Hilton Worm, also known as Bela, daughter Caitlin Worm in New York, sisters Janice, Agnes, Linda, Nettia, Joan and Corinne, brothers Christopher and Robert, many nieces, nephews, cousins, in-laws, neighbors and friends in Grenada and New York. A memorial service for the late Cutie St. John Worm of Grandon St. George, who resided in New York, USA, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 1:30 p.m. The service will be held at the Blessed Sacrament Church Grand Anse, followed by interment of ashes at the Grand Anse Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Pearl Agnes Bernard, née Fletcher, also known as Mother, of Munro Street, Victoria, St. Mark, who resided at Snell Hall and Lower Morley, St. Patrick, and in Toronto, Canada, passed away on Tuesday, 13th June 2023, at the age of 100. She was the mother of Ronald Fletcher, Joan Bernard Lewis, Jude and Joel Bernard in Grenada, Dennis Fletcher in the UK, Erlyn Hollis, Jeanette, Judith, Claire and Fred Bernard in Canada, and Christine Bernard Amoa in the USA. Grandmother of Janine Bernard, Tony, Alicia, Alexandria, Julie, Tracy, Miriam Bartholomew, Larry Hollis, Sheldon, Carl and Roland Fletcher, Lisa Murray, Crispin, Shadane, Jamar, Dr. Kelvin Bernard, Dr. Judlyn Bernard Bailey, Jodelle Bernard Alexander, Joel Bernard Jr., Sammy and John Fletcher. Adopted grandmother of Roydell, Godwin and Rondell. Great-grandmother of Adrian, Fabian, Faith, Dr. Ryan Hollis, Kirby, Sierra, Chelsea, Aidan, Naomi, Ava, Bryce, Zachary, Jasmine, Zoe, Keturah and Kimora, Amelia, Adira, Xavier and Talia. Mother-in-law of Sal Fletcher, Verdlin, Dale and Elaine Bernard, Dr. John Amoa, and Leroy Jones. Sister of Eva, Kingsley and Denzel in Grenada, Cedric, Joy and Esther in the USA, and Ralph in Trinidad. Aunt of many, including Gerald, Sam, Dr. Albert Fletcher, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, Edith, Eva, Sylvia, Dennis, Janice, Leadon, John, Carol, Louise, Deborah, Erin, Kelvin, Paul, and Carol. Sister-in-law of Dorette and Centillia Fletcher. Caretaker, Carleon Jeremiah. Other relatives and friends, including the Fletcher family of St. Mark, St. John, and St. George, the Bernard, Thomas, Bartholomew, and Charles families of Snell Hall, the Barry family of Lamode, Pastor Christopher Williams, Lincoln Bernard and family, Rufus Palmer and family, the pastor and members of the Kingsview SDA Church, Canada, the Satires Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the SDA community in Grenada, and friends and neighbours in Toronto, Canada, and at Marley, Lamode, and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Pearl Agnes Bernard, née Fletcher, also known as Mother, of Munro Street, Victoria, St. Mark, who resided at Snell Hall and Lower Morley, St. Patrick, and in Toronto, Canada, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Seventh-day Adventist Church Satires, and interment will be at the Morley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Augustine David King, also known as Zab, Beggs, and Augustus, of Bylands, who resided at Subi St. Andrew, retired truck driver of GCNA, passed away on Saturday, 3rd June 2023, at the age of 70. He was the father of nurse Kenesha King, Oswald, and Goodness in the USA, adopted father of Wade in the USA, grandfather of Ethan, Osel, Osim, Ayana, and Onika, brother of Wellington in the USA, Byron in Trinidad, Henry, Christopher, Gemma, Valerie, Louisa, Anne-Marie, and Teresa, also known as Honey, uncle of many including Sharon, Ken, Shamali, Vianne, and Vanessa, brother-in-law of Lucy, Alban, and David, cousin of many. Many relatives and friends including Margaret and family in Trinidad, the Beggs, Alexander, and King's families of Bylands, Mirabeau, Monthorn, and Birchgrove, the pastor and members of the Monlong Pentecostal Church, Carmen and family, past and present employees of GCNA, and friends and family of Petite Martinique, Soubise, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Augustine David King, also known as Zab, Beggs, and Augustus, of Bylands, who resided at Soubise St. Andrew, will take place on Tuesday, 11th July at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Grenville Pentecostal Lighthouse, and interment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Jasmine Lewis, also known as Nenny, of Grove St. John, passed away on Thursday, 22nd June 2023, at the age of 92. The funeral arrangements for the late Jasmine Lewis, also known as Nenny, of Grove St. John, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Francis Bernard James, also known as Presley, and Brandy Pling, of Coast Guard St. Mark, passed away on Thursday, 29th June 2023, at the age of 75. The funeral arrangements for the late Francis Bernard James, also known as Presley, and Brandy Pling, of Coast Guard St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. John T. Jordan Josiah Robinson of Lancapine, who resided at Caliste St. George, passed away on Saturday, 17th June 2023, at the age of 24. The funeral arrangements for the late John T. Jordan Josiah Robinson of Lancapine, who resided at Caliste St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Franklin Christopher Humphrey, also known as Coy, of Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, passed away on Friday, 23rd June 2023, at the age of 44. The funeral arrangements for the late Franklin Christopher Humphrey, also known as Coy, of Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Clint Thornhill, also known as Police, of Constantine St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 27th June 2023, at the age of 27. The funeral arrangements for the late Clint Thornhill, also known as Police, of Constantine St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Terry Foray, also known as Puta, of St. David Street, Victoria, St. Mark, passed away on Saturday, 17th June 2023, at the age of 57. The funeral arrangements for the late Terry Foray, also known as Puta, of St. David Street, Victoria, St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Hensley Miles, also known as Yellow, of Pedmotar St. David, passed away on Wednesday, 21st June 2023, at the age of 57. The funeral arrangements for the late Hensley Miles, also known as Yellow, of Pedmotar St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Marita Baptiste Batson, also known as Maritz, and Granny, of Laborie, who resided at Spring St. George, passed away on Monday, 26th June 2023, at the age of 90. The funeral arrangements for the late Marita Baptiste Batson, also known as Maritz, and Granny, of Laborie, who resided at Spring St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Veronica Noel, also known as Vitalis Hagley, of Montou St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 13th June 2023, at the age of 99. The funeral arrangements for the late Veronica Noel, also known as Vitalis Hagley, of Montou St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Royston Godfrey Jelliso, also known as Red George, of Mardi Gras St. David, died on Thursday, 22nd June 2023, at the age of 56. The funeral arrangements for the late Royston Godfrey Jelliso, also known as Red George, of Mardi Gras St. David, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Catherine Campbell, also known as Catherine Drayton of River Road, who resided at Spring St. George, passed away on Monday, 26th June 2023, at the age of 84. The funeral arrangements for the late Catherine Campbell, also known as Catherine Drayton of River Road, who resided at Spring St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Rickelson Toussaint, also known as Rick Boy and Baby Boy, of River Sally St. Patrick, passed away on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, at the age of 20. The funeral arrangements for the late Rickelson Toussaint, also known as Rick Boy and Baby Boy, of River Sally St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Catherine Lucille Frederick of Bellevue St. David, who resided in Canada, passed away on Saturday 17th June 2023 at the age of 83. The funeral arrangements for the late Catherine Lucille Frederick of Bellevue St. David, who resided in Canada, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. WRC Leslie and Jacinta Braveboy of Lauriston Carriacou passed away on Wednesday 21st June 2023 at the age of 53. The funeral arrangements for the late WRC Leslie and Jacinta Braveboy of Lauriston Carriacou will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Joy Veronica Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark passed away on Friday 16th June 2023 at the age of 70. The funeral arrangements for the late Joy Veronica Ned of Grosse Pointe St. Mark will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Garvin Sean McGilvery of Beausejour St. George died on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 at the age of 39. The funeral arrangements for the late Garvin Sean McGilvery of Beausejour St. George will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Hubert Ewart Braffett, also known as Bert, Campaign and Braff, of Montgelou, who resided at Woburn St. George, passed away on Tuesday 13th June 2023 at the age of 73. The funeral arrangements for the late Hubert Ewart Braffett, also known as Bert, Campaign and Braff, of Montgelou, who resided at Woburn St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Hagley, also known as Bonnie, of Bellevue St. David, who resided in the USA, passed away on Thursday 15th June 2023 at the age of 62. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph Hagley, also known as Bonnie, of Bellevue St. David, who resided in the USA, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Nicola Cara George of Rosehill St. Patrick passed away on Thursday 8th June 2023 at the age of 39. The funeral arrangements for the late Nicola Cara George of Rosehill St. Patrick will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Imelda Lena Batiste, also known as Mama, of Chantimel St. Patrick, who resided in London, England, peacefully passed away on Monday, May 1st, 2023 in London at the age of 68. The funeral arrangements for the late Imelda Lena Batiste, also known as Mama, of Chantimel St. Patrick, who resided in London, England, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Rest it in the Lord Jesus Christ. Give him that sorrow, that pain. I know it's painful to see that our loved one go, but Jesus Christ in Isaiah chapter 5 told us that he have taken all of that for us. He was wounded for our transgression. He was bruised for our iniquity. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes you would be healed from that loss, brothers and sisters. You would be healed. You would soon overcome. You would still be strengthened. Look at the Lord Jesus Christ. Was bruised, beaten, spit upon, died upon a cross. His mother was there watching that child. Took so much of mankind for nothing that he have done. Yet for her, he took it all upon himself. So today, me and you, when we see what happened to our life, we can look on the cross and know there is a better future for us. It's the same thing here. When I would even say to you, sometimes when some loved one die, according to the condition of that, brothers and sisters, we should more rejoice than being sorrowful. Because God have known the best of that for us. All I want to say here to you today, that trust in God, despite whatsoever it is, get that inner faith, that inner peace. He said, cast all the cares upon him. He said, my yoke is easy and my burden is... Just cast it upon him, brother. I know it might be difficult for you to think about how could you do it. Just give it a try. Just a step of faith. Just say, Lord, have your way in me. Lord, keep me through these trial times. And he will do it. He will keep you. When you read through the Psalms 23, the Lord is our shepherd. We shall not want. You read through that Psalms and you recognize that David himself was going through a testing time. And he recognized, even as he said, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You may be walking through the valley of the shadow of death now, but you don't have to fear that evil, brothers and sisters. Because the Lord, the rod and the staff will comfort you. He will take you through that. He will carry you through. God carried the children of Israel through. He can carry you through today. Just give him your all. Give him that trust. You know why sometimes we go through many grief and pain and sorrow for weeks and for days. Sometimes we even take some loved ones with them. Because why? Our heart and our faith is not with the Lord. But I'm telling you today, just trust in the Lord. Just trust in the Lord and he will see you through. Just trust in the Lord and he will make that way for you. Stretch your arm right now and I will pray with you. Father in heaven, I thank you for the God that who you are. You don't think it as men, oh God, Father Lord. Lord, sometimes when you're moaning and groaning, you are still walking. And Father, now you are walking on these lives, oh God, Father. Those who have grieved and have lost ones, oh God, and to them, oh God, all is lost. Father, I know you can restore back unto them presently now. That faith, oh God, Father, that joy. Lord, even David has spoken about it, oh God, in Psalms 51. Oh, restore unto me the joy. Oh God, Lord, and I pray tonight, I pray now, oh God, Father, Lord, that you would restore back unto them, oh God, Lord, that they, oh God, Father, Lord, would put their trust in you. Lord, yet, oh God, Father, Lord, the memory, the evil forces, oh God, the hell, death, and all his guilt and his foes, oh God, Father, Lord, even, oh God, the neighbors and friends and relatives may come to remind them of the past, oh God, to haunt their life. But God, I pray now, oh God, that you would take it away, oh God, Father, Lord, that the memory that you would give them is one to last, oh God, Father, of eternity, oh God, looking, oh God, Father, Lord, that they would meet that loved one at some day, oh God, and they would be together again in joy and happiness, oh God, Father, Lord. Never to depart, oh God, Father, Lord. I pray now that you touch them. Oh Father in heaven, oh God, Lord. You are all hearing God. And Father, I know you will not fail me. Bless them tonight, oh God, Father. Bless them today, oh God. Wheresoever they are, oh God. Whosoever they are. Reach out to them, oh God, Lord, and rest your nails hand upon them and bring them into that fold that they would understand that, as you said, oh God, as you rise, they would rise on the last day. In Jesus' name. Amen and amen. God bless you. I hope what I have shared with you will bring some closure to your pain, your grief, and your sorrow. And God will take you on to a brighter tomorrow. God bless you.